Thank you, Madam Speaker, and it's been interesting to observe the debate that has been taking place in the chamber here today on Bill C-58. And I would note a couple of observations, if I could, because I believe it provides important context to the conversation that we are having here. And the observations that I would note to you, Madam Speaker, and of course the many Canadians that I'm sure are watching, is the flip-flops that we are seeing in this regard. Madam Speaker, we have the Liberals desperate to keep the NDP on side, yet it seems like the NDP are quick to sell out when it comes to simply holding on to this thread of power that they feel they have. We hear the NDP talk tough against the Liberals in one sentence, yet then they walk down the street to committee, which the leader of the NDP said in the beginning that committees would not be affected by their confidence and supply coalition agreement, yet we see them capitulating to the...
One point of order, the honourable member for New Westminster, Burnaby.
This is completely irrelevant. We're talking about anti-replacement worker legislation, and a member just can't get up. If he hasn't read the bill, I would suggest he read the bill, get the information, but he has to speak on topic, Madam Speaker, as you well know.
So again, I just want to remind members that there is some flexibility during speeches. However, the honourable members do need to ensure that their speech is related to the bill and should mention the bill from time to time during their speech, if possible, or aspects within the bill. So the honourable member for Rattle River Crowfoot.
Well, Madam Speaker, I'm always glad that the NDP are paying such close attention, because if they would pay such close attention to Canadians, they would see how far off base they are with average workers that I'm speaking to coast, and certainly that are attending the rallies that the leader of the opposition, the member from Carleton, who in fact in many cases, and this is an interesting observation, and it does connect closely to Bill C-58, Madam Speaker, and I'm glad that that NDP member is paying attention, because what we're hearing increasingly is that workers across this country feel abandoned by left-leaning parties in this country. Right. They feel abandoned by an ideological focus on things that are shifting the conversation away from Canadians being able to prosper. So when it comes to the bill that we have before us, we have the NDP even, they are taking credit for this, yet I've heard them time and time again stand up and declare all the problems that exist within this legislation. For example, they have stated that they don't agree with the 18-month window for coming into force. Madam Speaker, we've heard from that minister that introduced the bill that there's some ambiguity as to who it would apply for. We see that the public service, that it affects federally regulated sectors, but it does not affect the public service. So, Madam Speaker, there are many holes in this legislation, and it's unfortunate the NDP seem to be so quick to sell themselves out for this slight grip on power that they seem to have. And we see that no more obviously, and it relates directly to the conversation we're having, Madam Speaker, because the leader of the NDP, only a number of months ago, when facing a confidence vote at his convention, there was a red line drawn. The members of that party said that if they didn't have pharmacare by the end of the year, the deal was done. Well, Madam Speaker, we see that once again there is, you simply cannot trust what the NDP promise. You simply cannot trust what they say that they are endeavoring to accomplish, and that the NDP and that the Liberals in this coalition agreement, it's either some of the worst negotiations we've ever seen, or they simply are playing along with this tenuous idea of power or security, so that they may be afraid to face the electorate in this country. So. And what's interesting, and that member proved my point, is how angry the NDP are about this. They seem angry about everything that the Liberals are doing, yet they are the ones that continue to prop them up. And Madam Speaker, that is no more true than the situation we find ourselves in as we are debating a bill on replacement workers, yet we see that the NDP are supporting the government in the bringing in of thousands of foreign replacement workers on government-subsidized projects. Now, Madam Speaker, We have before us tens of billions of dollars that are being spent to subsidize these battery production facilities. And Madam Speaker, I would just take a brief detour if I could, because certainly I believe fully that there is a huge economic opportunity that exists when it comes to energy in Canada, whether that's traditional forms of energy or whether that's new and clean tech. But what I find absolutely tragic, Madam Speaker, is that the ideological Liberals are so blinded by this idea that they have to be in control, that they refuse to allow our economy to prosper. They refuse to allow my constituents. And Madam Speaker, I'm proud to be the beating heart of Canada's energy industry. In fact, 87% of Canada's crude oil transits through a little town called Hardisty in my constituency. And now that may be an embarrassment to the left-leaning parties in this House, but the reality is this, Madam Speaker, when it comes to the energy that powers our nation, that can power the world, and that provides good, not only good-paying jobs to the folks that I represent, but provides the revenue, taxation, and otherwise to so much of what we have come to depend on in our country, it is an absolute embarrassment that those Liberals and those NDP have abandoned those hard-working Canadians for this ideological fantasy that simply is not worth the cost. But let's get back to the foreign replacement workers. The situation that we have before us is that the Liberals are quick to brag about the deals that they've signed. Yet, Madam Speaker, what is very troubling is that while they brag publicly about the deals, they refuse to tell us what those deals actually are. They talk about the number of jobs they're creating, but the number, the misinformation, the disinformation, the competing information that we get from those Liberals is certainly, it makes the Prime Minister's math that budgets balance themselves seem top quality when compared to the number of the scope of differences that exist between the different estimates we've seen about the number of individuals that will be brought into Canada, subsidized by Canadian taxpayers, and those dollars being sent to workers that are not from this country. And what is tragic in this conversation, Madam Speaker, is that in the beginning, it was the Leader of the Opposition stood up in his place and he shared outrage. He was outraged that about the revelations of these foreign replacement workers, and that he was going to get to the bottom of it, and that his MPs were going to fight for that every step of the way. Yet it only took a couple of short weeks.
I have a point of order from the Honourable Government House Deputy House Leader.
I hate to call a point of order because it only prolongs how much longer I have to listen to this, but do you think you could ask the member to at least return to the subject? You've already asked him once, stressed the importance of that. Perhaps he could return to the subject of the bill that we're debating today?
Yes, so although there is some leeway, I also was wondering when the honourable member would actually get to the bill itself, and so I would remind the member that he is to speak to the content of the bill. Yes, he can add some other content in there, but he should be focused on the bill that is before the House. I have another point of order. The honourable member for Provencher.
Point of order, Madam Speaker. I was listening very closely to the member giving his speech, and he was talking about the replacement workers coming to the Stellantis battery factory from South Korea. This is a replacement worker. This is a replacement worker piece of legislation, and he was directly referring to the replacement workers that the Liberals have authorized. To come
so again, I do want to remind members, I appreciate the honourable member adding to the conversation. Yes, the honourable member has added a very minimum quality in there, but I just want to make sure that the debate is actually on the bill itself, and I do want to allow the honourable member to finish his speech. He has almost 3 minutes. I have another point of order, sorry. The honourable member for Esquimalt-Saanich-Sooke.
Madam Speaker. If we're going to be talking about the topic of this bill and use the term replacement workers, I'd just like to point out that temporary foreign workers, whatever people feel about them, I happen to think that temporary foreign workers are a good addition to our economy. However you feel about them, they're not replacement workers under this legislation. And so either the members of the Conservative Party are confused or they're deliberately.
I'm sorry, that seems, I had to, and I apologize, I had to actually put my speaker on even more because I couldn't hear the honourable member that well, but I did get the gist, and that would actually be a point of debate. So the honourable member for Battle River Crowfoot.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And it's certainly always interesting how, when I speak the truth in this place, to the level that it triggers the left in this country is certainly astounding. And that couldn't be more true than the fact that while we debate the concept of a bill that would supposedly ban replacement workers, although there are some clauses that you could drive an electric vehicle through. It is quite fascinating that these other parties here, and in particular the NDP, and to just emphasize the point that I was making, and I think it has to do with the credibility to which the NDP are claiming on this legislation, because while their leader and their members stood strong demanding answers, it took only a couple of weeks, Madam Speaker, for them to back down, for them to literally, and I wish I was kidding here, but instead of demanding that a parliamentary committee get the answers, get the contracts in this case, to see the contracts so that Canadians could know for themselves exactly what we were talking about, the number of replacement workers, what was negotiated on behalf of taxpayers. This is not, just a private company and a private company or private individuals. This is a minister of the Crown and a government department negotiating to the tune of tens of billions of dollars in tax dollars. Now, it's not the government's money. That's Canadians' money, Madam Speaker. Yet, instead of demanding accountability, although they feigned outrage in this place, what did the NDP do at committee? They backed down and said, oh, we'll just file an ATIP. Instead of demanding answers, oh, we'll just file an access to information request. And the government has repeatedly refused to abide by the most basic measures of accountability to provide the answers that Canadians deserve. So when it comes to the subject matter of what we are here debating today, Madam Speaker, it comes down to the idea of trust. And for the NDP, I don't know how they can continue to trust the Liberals. For Canadians, it is increasingly clear that they cannot trust the left-leaning coalition that governs this country. Because when it comes to the best interests of workers, Madam Speaker, it is clear, it is crystal clear that they do not have, whether unionized or not, whether a new sector in the economy or a traditional one, it is clear that the left-leaning coalition in this country do not have workers' backs. Well, Madam Speaker, the good news is Conservatives do, and we're going to bring it home for Canadians.
Questions and comments.